Hello and welcome to Sacred Psychology, the podcast for misfits and mystics. Here, neuroscience and spirituality go hand in hand. Join me, Tamara Powell, on a no-holds-barred adventure outside the box, because that's where all the truly great shit happens anyway. Welcome back to Sacred Psychology. I'm your host, Tamara Powell. Today, I'm once again joined by the incredible, the incomparable Alexandra Covucci for our Cracked Open series. Unlike my interview-style podversations, the Cracked Open series is a lot more intimate and raw, revealing the ways that we can infuse the sacred into our everyday being. Today, Alex and I are diving into the sacred and business. It is such a juicy conversation and one I cannot wait for you to hear. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Cracked Open series. I'm Tamara Powell.
And I'm Alexandra Covucci.
And we believe that we're all really just shells hoping to be chiseled open so we can see the universe within.
We hope to pave the way for you if you're looking for a place to be cracked open, unraveled, and join us on this journey.
So we'll show you ours if you'll show us yours. Hey, Alex.
Good morning.
So excited to talk to you.
As always, I'm always excited to talk to you. And I love that we make ourselves more excited because for the listeners out there, we spend a little while on the phone before we dive in, not prepping, but just because we can't stop talking.
You got a good connection when.
Yeah.
So good.
So we always bring that energy right in here.
Which is perfect because that's what I want this series to be, as opposed to just an interview style that the other ones are. This is the cozy up with this, with your cup of tea or your
cup of tea, glass of wine, blanket,
Jack and Coke, whatever works for you.
Whatever you want. Running shoes, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you belong.
Yes, come hang out with us and explore these cracked open moments. And so today I want to bring that into how do we bring the sacred into our business life, into our financial side of things? Because that is a huge component of our lives. And to me, sacred psychology extends to all the levels of being, right?
Yeah, I mean, to dive in, I would love to hear, for me personally, what you consider sacred. Like, what is sacredness to you?
Oh, such a good, deep word.
Such a big question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a deep word.
And in typical Gemini omnist form, I'm going to say that it is both what is transcendent and what is grounded. It is what goes beyond just the basic senses. It evokes a sense of this is holy, not in the Christian sense of the word, but this is what's reverent or magical or awe-inducing. Bringing that spiritual component, it really is just an essence of spirituality, however you define it. It can even just be nature-based, into your life, because I personally do not believe that you can be a human being and not have a spiritual side. You have a psychological side, an intellectual side, an emotional side, and you are by nature a spirit, a spirit being. So the sacred to me is that awareness of the spiritual essence.
I love that. And being businesswomen, businesswomen that we are, it's funny to see this unfold. And I was just thinking yesterday, and I was actually talking to somebody about this, how it's really interesting to see like spiritual coming out of the closet stories in business.
Yes.
And I think it's because people are so hungry because we haven't really learned, or we don't learn as people being raised in the society that we're raised in. We don't really learn that is an integral part, right? Like that is an integral organ of what we create.
Of everything that we create.
Right, totally. And so it's been really interesting for me to see not only, kind of get that sense of everyone around me, that you can tell when people are really kind of tapping into that or exploring that or witnessing that in themselves. But also in myself and going on that journey has been really cool.
Me too, girl. Me too. So from the get-go of my business, even my very traditional psychotherapy practice back in the day. I wanted Aria, which is Sanskrit for not ordinary, but also,
No.
right, also noble, valuable, and pure. It really, to me, encompassed the qualities of the namaste. The divine in me recognizes the divine in you. That's my Tam's paraphrase. And it overlaps the biblical view of Philippians 4:8. Which is finally, brethren, whatsoever is good, noble, virtuous, whatever your translation of that is, think about these things. And so I wanted Aria to be a lighthouse for people to really have holistic healing, encompassing all of their levels of being, with a possibility for people to explore their spiritual side as well, because the psychological research shows that the vast majority of clients, whether you're in counseling, coaching, even business, really appreciate and do better when they have a spiritual emphasis as well. This does not mean that I impose my spiritual beliefs, but that I point the clients to their own, like help them explore their own and recognize that if they are leaving their spirituality at the door, so to speak, in their heads, they're missing out.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that you said you direct them to their own, because I think finding your own spirituality is, in essence, spirituality itself, right? That process is a spiritual process of finding out what your spiritual beliefs are, what your spiritual connection is, what your spiritual mojo is, if you will, right? That in and of itself is part of the spiritual process.
Absolutely. And so just like we have to explore our thoughts and our emotions, it's where do I bring that sense of sacred into my everyday being, and in today's conversation, into my business?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you know me, I'm typically an overthinker and an overfeeler. And I've been asking myself lately in the last few months what my relationship to spirituality is and to spirit, because I grew up in church, in not Catholic church, but a Greek Orthodox church. And I equated spirituality with religion, which I think a lot of people do. That's where we are introduced to it for many of us. You know, the family paradigms, the religious paradigms, we just kind of get shuttled in. And I rejected that. I rejected really all forms of organized religion when I was coming out, when I was understanding my own sexuality. Unfortunately for me, for many years, that turned to also rejecting a belief that I could be spiritual. And it's been a really interesting thing to you know, like you said, there's thinking, there's feeling, and there's an element of spirit. And it's so important, and it's so easy to overlook.
I love that you bring up the coming out stories in all the ways. And I want to come back around to coming out in business, but in religion, looking at religion versus spirituality, most people, if you ask them that question, and I ask them, a lot of people, that question, it almost always comes down to religion being the set of rules, the traditions, the rituals, the paradigms, the dogma, whatever, which can be really, really beautiful, because to go on a nerdy science kick with that as well, that is what primes our brain for that magical awe feeling, which is why for me, some Christian worship music is still my jam. Shocking, but because it is attached to emotional memory of peace or happiness, it can evoke that feeling. So then, you know, I work with a lot of spiritual abuse victims, or the LGBTQIA alphabet soup rainbow population, my brethren, and how many have become hurt by their so-called spirituality.
Yeah, and even I think in some cases not hurt, but well, I guess, you know, this could be connected to hurt, but rejecting it before it rejects them.
That's where I was going to go. Yes, disillusioned, perfect synchronicity. So what happens though is that there is this dissonance, this bifurcating in the psyche, because you can't cut off your spirituality. We push it away, but that longing is still there. And so it was very painstakingly apparent to see the research firsthand, which shows that when spirituality is supportive of our identity, it actually becomes one of our greatest strengths and resilient tools. And so obviously the inverse is also true when our so-called spirituality is rejecting of, or our interpretation of it even is rejecting of whatever we see in the mirror. It becomes our greatest hurdle and a negative indicator in psychological and emotional health. That's what I mean. Like one level always affects all the other levels. And so I've worked with so many pastors who have been like excommunicated because they've been gay or because they had an affair, and suddenly were suicidal. And the deepest dark pain when we pulled through all of it was that I lost my connection to spirit. And now I don't know what to do. Or, like you said, they just push it away ahead of time. I meet with so many trans teens that they're like, spirituality, psh, who the fuck needs that anymore? Like,
Right? Because I think on some level, spirituality through organized religion got, and for some people and in some organized religions, certainly not all, none of this is a blanketed statement, but took on the role of like the disapproving parent. And especially for, kiddos who are gay or kiddos who are trans or different, right? In any way or out of the box, because part of it feels like a box for some. And
for a lot,
right? And so I think that's really, really profound, because for a lot of people, especially at that age, or especially in a time of crisis at whatever age, it's hard to separate those two things. It's hard because we put spirituality into an outside entity, whether that be this book or this religion or this group, when in reality, it's the spirituality that lives within us that allows us to connect to all these different things and explore all these different things.
Amen. And you'll even hear progressive Christians say that it's not about their tradition, but that it's about a relationship. But unfortunately, saying it's one thing, doing it is very much so another.
Right.
Lay happy sigh. So bringing it from that external focus back into what does it mean for a personal identification with anything outside of myself, bringing that sacred in is so key. Because in my opinion, it is the foundation, the pilot light that drives everything throughout your day, whether you realize it or not.
So, Tams, I'm curious, if somebody was like, all right, I own a business, or I'm an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that they do, they own a nonprofit, whatever. And they're like, holy shit, like what they're saying on this podcast, I'm totally resonating with. I pushed away the church for whatever reason. I don't feel spiritually connected. What the hell? What do you think is first steps? Is opening that relationship again?
Reconnecting to the feeling of unconditional love.
And what oh my God, we got a morning worker. Yeah. What if somebody thinks, I don't know what that means?
I usually point them in a therapy or coaching session to just sit quietly for a moment with their eyes closed and to call up a moment where they felt very, very loved by another human being. And for some, I will admit that is harder than others. If you've grown up with trauma, absolutely, that could be difficult. And so just imagining, though, your brain will follow you, imagining what it would be like to be completely supported and accepted right here, right now, in that moment. Or if that's even tricky, queen of a million ideas, going to a time where you felt utter surrenderous love, rapture for another human being, and allowing that feeling to extend outward around you in all directions and marinating in that for as long as possible.
I love that.
Start there, because astrophysicists will agree with me here that the highest vibration, you can put varying words on it, is always something very similar to that. The highest vibrational frequency of what the earth and everything around you, including yourself, vibrates at is love. Which is why I personally believe that the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran and all of them will talk about verses like God is love. Rumi called it the beloved.
I love that.
So we start there. We start with that connection to love energy. For others, it's truth energy. Whatever you hold in highest esteem, recognizing that the reason you hold it in highest esteem is because there is something out there that mirrors it back. Getting deep up in here.
I know. I'm over here like in my own blanket with my own cup of Joe. Like, keep going, babes.
Swoon with me. And so I want to hear about your morning routine. I spend time tapping into that energy and that felt sense before I set about the rest of my day to go see a client or talk to my kids, etc. You don't want to see Tams unconnected to that energy.
For sure. No,
you don't want me operating strictly from egoic logic and my felt emotion.
Yeah, sometimes Dre will be like, baby, I think you need to meditate. I hear you, babe. I hear you. Yeah, one thing I notice, my morning routine is definitely connection before all else, especially before technology, because that's like an onslaught of everybody else's energy and an onslaught of like invitations to go into overthinking and overfeeling and worrying and blah, blah. So I always connect first. I do notice, however, I go through these phases of like major craving, ready to connect, and then these phases of major resistance. This week actually being one of them. Major resistance to connecting, to sitting, to having a spiritual practice or connection. It's like it's a very strange sensation.
You're in a dry period.
Yeah. But yet I know that if I don't, that I still swing into overthinking, overworrying, procrastinating, da-da-da-da. And so that connection is paramount.
It is, whether you want to do it or not. Yeah. And so I trick my brain. I put noise silencing headphones on and will listen to binaural beats or solfeggio frequencies.
Oh, good call. Yeah, I used to do a lot of those.
It's my daily go-to. I understand silent meditation can bring about some of the deepest stuff, but for me, you just got to know what works for you. I always start with music and chant first.
I love that.
And then tapping, and then finally sitting a little bit quieter. Usually still with instrumental music just on really, 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 really low.
I love that. And I think that's a really great way. I actually started tapping before meditation, and that was really powerful.
Yes, it helps center, I have found. For those who don't know what we're talking about, EFT, emotion freedom technique. Just Google it, put it in YouTube. I keep playlists because I'm, anally ordered like that.
I love it. I love it. When I come over to my house and organize my stuff.
I have a favorite tapping playlist and a favorite chanting playlist and favorite meditation music playlist. So that way when I wake up in a dry spell, I can go, all right, soul, what do we need right now?
I love that. And I think even that subtly points to a really, really important piece of it, which is asking your soul what it needs. Right? Like, because I think spirituality itself can turn into a should or a have to. And as we're talking, I'm kind of realizing this. It can turn into a should or a have to instead of an eternal question to self, of self, for self.
Beautiful.
I know you like that. Boom.
Sure. Covucci quotable. Tweet it out. Share it right now with your friends. So bringing it back around to business, we've solidly established now that human beings, and everyone's like, yeah, duh, we're spiritual essence in this flesh. And this is why we have the conscious awareness in the brain of our thoughts at all times. So whatever it is that leaves us, those 7 ounces when we die, is that soul spirit essence, what mystics have been trying to describe forever. And today we're saying, take that, hey boo-boo, that thing, that wonderful thing, and apply it to your financial basis. Bring it into whatever you are doing, especially as an entrepreneur, because I do want to explore both sides, but even for the vast majority of us that are in traditional 9-to-5s or whatever, 10-to-3s, your waitresses, your busboy, you're doing daycare worker, nurse.
Right.
Because not only is this been proven time and time again to make your life that much more fulfilling, but it actually improves the lives of everyone else around you. It brings us into that namaste where you're raising the global consciousness. Yep, I just went woo.
I love it. I love the woo.
Yeah. Yes. So, Alex, what are some ways that spiritual focus you see being a very practical part of your daily entrepreneurship?
For me, I think number one is creation of self, right? I think a lot of for me, that's a spiritual practice. I think a lot of what leads people into entrepreneurship is a desire to help or a desire for more, right? More money. A lot of being in a regular job is because we have to survive, because we have to live. And a lot of times I think what we don't place our attention on is who we are choosing to be in every single moment of every single day. And so I bring that in by really trying to consciously create my being, consciously create who I am. And that takes into account understanding all of these different facets of myself, right? Which is my thinking, my feelings, it's like kind of putting the whole pie in front of me and me feeling my way through and allowing myself to navigate and allowing myself to love myself through it. I think that's a really, really powerful thing for me, is to kind of take a look at it from this place of creation, from this place of, because I believe when I feel most connected to my spirituality, I'm also most connected to my unfolding and to my evolution. And so I consciously try to tap into that. And I consciously try to bring that into everything I do by asking myself, who do I want to be? Who am I being?
I love that. I love that daily focus of it, because it is a daily evolution. It's a daily uncovering, a daily revealing. It's taking it to the next level, hopefully taking baby steps every single day in the direction of soul purpose, right? And so one of my favorite questions lately did come from Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith's life visioning, is like, what is the highest vision for my life? Like just today, like how am I setting off in the direction of that today? This doesn't have to be as big as everybody else makes it out to. It's like, where's my authentic self, as you're talking about, heading? Given what's on my schedule today, whatever that is, this podcast, a client, taking the little one to a doctor's appointment, how can my authentic soul be emerging? Like, what is seeking to emerge in, through, and as my life today?
Yeah.
Love it.
I think that's a beautiful question. What is seeking to emerge?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really beautiful question. What are some of your ways of bringing this in?
Well, besides that, asking myself that daily question every single day, I really pull from my non-dualistic, even Christian roots of, it's a moment by moment practice. So some of the ways is just, I'm constantly attempting to connect with spirit, talk to with my higher self. You insert whatever language that works for you, God, goddess, authentic truth. That's not what matters. It's your feeling of that. But trying to connect with that moment by moment, I think the best spirituality is the one that's most practical, hence this podcast. And so you can be very spiritual. You can be mindful doing the dishes. Like, it's the dharma of it, it's like, you're living it. And so there are times, many, many times in a client session, that I will be like, wow, such a profound moment. Spirit, what do they most need from me right now? Is it the nurturing side of TAMS? Is it the empowered, I'm going to kick your ass a little bit here side of TAMS? Right. So just giving permission to, you can call it your intuition of what's next. When a doctor's heading in to meet with a patient, simply setting up a quick thought, prayer, whatever word works for you.
I love that. I love that. And what struck me as you were talking was, for people who feel, and I suppose, this comes from my background, for people who feel disconnected for whatever reason, sometimes the most powerful reconnection is to talk, right?
Yes.
To speak speak to it, and even ask questions like, are you here? What are you? Am I you? Are you me? What, please be with me. Is something with me? Am I supported? Right? And I think curiosity is a really powerful tool to reconnect to that. Because as you were speaking, I remembered this time in my life when I was like, when I wouldn't communicate with spirit because I was afraid spirit wouldn't communicate back.
Aww.
And it was this, like, what if I find out it's not real for me? And what I discovered was it becomes real through the process of creating it. Right?
You have to take action.
Right? It's always there. But if you live locked in a bedroom with somebody and never face each other and just stare out your own windows, never talk to each other, never touch each other, never look at each other, never address each other, you don't have a relationship. Even if you both exist. Same with spirituality, is if you're not facing it, speaking to spirit, connecting with spirit from even this place of curiosity, even when you feel like maybe it's not in the cards for you, that first step is opening your mouth, right? And even if it's happening internally.
Well said.
Yeah, to start that conversation.
Bingo bongo. Yes. Start a conversation with something beyond self.
Yeah.
Transcendence.
Yeah.
It's really, I can't boil it down into a nutshell any more than that. What it looks like to me to have a spiritually conscious business, to bring the spirit into my daily action, whether that is as a floor washer or as, for me, a counselor and a coach. And so it shouldn't, what I'm not describing is leading with your spirituality. I am not saying I am a Christian coach. I am a Buddhist coach. I am a whatever. What I am saying is that the spiritual infusion, I'm doing the thing while having a connection to higher self, source, spirit.
Yep.
That everything I do is infused with that energy.
Yeah.
As much as possible. You forget at moments, which brings me to another point. I think it's staying mindful of the disconnect, those moments where we're not talking, those moments where we are just acting as roommates with spirit. Someone, I don't know who said this, but I once heard that ego is edging goddess out.
I think I've heard that too. Yeah, really powerful. I forgot about that.
Which I like that, because then it's not something to like attack or kick to the curb. It's a moment of disconnection.
Yeah.
It's back when I am just caught up in my overly thinking, overly feeling side of things.
Totally. And I think that's an important thing too. I think, ego and spirit work together within you, right? Like I think when we turn to attacking ego, it can almost flare it up in a whole new sense.
Right, because ego is connected to your individuality, your personality. And so I'm using this in the very non-Buddhist side of things. What we're talking about is you are still Alexandra with your personal history and thoughts and emotions and unique flair. And so when we're bringing in, reconnecting you to spirit, it's coming through your personhood right now. That's another good word for it. We need that.
Yep.
Because you reflect the divine in a way that I don't, and vice versa.
Right.
We were just talking about that before the call. You can use Enneagram language. You can use astrological signs. You can use whatever you want, cohort differences. But there is something very different about Alexandra as a spiritually enlightened being coach versus Tamara as a spiritually enlightened being coach.
Right. And honoring that is just as important as honoring your connection to spirit.
Yes. So to me, a sacred business is one that really celebrates that individuality. And now here's where I am going to bring you another quote, because I love quotes.
I love your quotes.
So again, the beautiful Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith says, in this three-dimensional movie called Life, there are no stand-ins, body doubles, or understudies. No one can fill in for us by proxy. Realization of this truth eliminates the need to imitate, conform, limit, or betray your loyalty to the originality of self.
Mm. Mm.
Can I get an amen?
I love that. And I'm also ready after this conversation to go to Amazon and have a little buying frenzy.
Yes. Oh my God. Love him and his omnisty sounding sacred psychological ways.
Oh, I love it.
There's that tension, that balance between recognizing when we are caught up in edging spirit out of our business, of our daily lives, and also recognizing that because we are in this human incarnation, we need our individuality, our personhood,
right,
in order to fulfill our soul purpose.
Right. And that's also where we experience drive and different levels of desire and want, right? The ego brings us further, as well as spirituality. Like it's all ingredients in this, one pot pasta.
Amen. And it points us to those lessons, the things that you get angry at, the things that trigger you, the things that bring longing. You are so right. Are ways that spirit or your higher self can be getting your attention. Hey, Tams, that thing that's pissing you off.
Right. Absolutely.
I'll share with you just this week, birthed more of my soul purpose. I mean, it finally brought together my book idea.
Yeah. And that comes with pressure, right? That comes with internal pressure.
Absolutely. So I want to circle back around to the coming out stories. For people who aren't just in the traditional 9 to 5 and who may be willing to kick this up another notch and come out of the spiritual closet. Talk to me about that, Alex.
Yeah. In what way? I mean, that's a big, yeah.
Any of the ways. I know I do big questions on purpose.
Oh, boy. Oh.
What is this reaction?
That one requires a stretch. There's a stretch happening here.
Woo.
So for people who are looking to come out of the spiritual closet.
Yeah. In business, especially.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big, I don't even know if I've come out of the spiritual closet because I don't even know if I'm in the spiritual closet, right? It's I've talked to quite a few people and I work a lot with women who are in hiding in some way, right? Women who are kind of hiding something, whether that's being gay or whether that's hiding in the sense that they don't want to raise their prices. And a lot of it is spirituality. I see a lot of hiding in the spiritual closet. And I think it's a process of acceptance, a process of accepting self.
Yes.
And part of self is spirituality, right? Part of self is spirit. And I mean, that kind of breaks open all these other questions, which is, what's your prior connection? Or what are you afraid of? What fear is this pointing to? Where do you feel there's, scarcity? Where are you afraid of more scarcity? I think all of this is a journey of acceptance, really. I'm racking my brain right now to kind of go into the little nuances, but I keep coming back to accepting oneself and loving oneself and experimenting with that.
Girl, that could just be you summed up in a bumper sticker.
I know.
Every Facebook Live by Alexandra Covucci ever is going to be revolving around those 3 things, which is wonderful because that's part of your soul purpose. So
yeah, and I think it's really, really important.
It is. It's vital.
Yeah, because I think there's this sense of I've got to conform.
Boom.
I've got to conform to be loved. I've got to conform to be okay. I've got to conform to fit in. And we all feel that pull in different areas of our lives and no less in the spiritual closet.
Well, all also wanting to be a unique snowflake.
Exactly. We rebel against it and then we want to fit it.
I want to be totally unique, but I want to know that you still love me.
Totally. I actually spoke to a woman recently who was kind of coming out of the closet with psychic stuff and mediumship and all of this really beautiful stuff that she's experiencing. And she mentioned to me that at one point she tried to shut it down and went through such a deep depression. And the reason she tried to shut it down was because out here, right, in the world, there was this fear that people wouldn't get it. People wouldn't accept it. But what she found was the lack of self-acceptance was where the greater pain came in.
This is what I'm saying. Thank you for walking right into my beautifully laid, I won't say trap, but it's not a trap. Yellow brick road.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm describing.
It's like any coming out. I remember a point I could hide my sexuality to a point. And that point was which I had to decide that I wanted to live in less pain, even if that meant others around me wouldn't accept me, because the greater pain was not accepting myself.
Yes. The prophet Jeremiah in the Bible talks about it being a fire shut up in your bones. It hurts to contain it, you can't.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of.
It does. It's cranking it up a notch. So I often work with other trapezoid type entrepreneurs that don't quite fit in, and they also have spiritual gifts. Because I've said it on this podcast before, I personally believe we all have spiritual gifts, ways in which we tap into spirit through intuition. Every single person on this planet. Some of you pick it up through feeling. Some of you just know things. Some of you see pictures in your head, etc. When you're around other people, all of a sudden you'll picture like a little girl holding flowers. And the woo community would put that in different language, like, psychic or clairvoyant, etc. I don't care what you're going to call it. But for entrepreneurs who are willing to edge that line and start to say, you know what, I am great at helping you put business systems together. And not only can I do that from the background of my MBA, I am also really, really good at intuitively guiding you to branding, whatever. On one hand, because you and I are in the same pond, it feels like everybody's doing that. But on the other hand, it's still very scary because not everybody is doing that. And what do you say? Like, I think thinking about some of the questions that you were proposing, my head was talking to me going, I was afraid of being burned at the stake. Like, is that even a legit thing anymore? No. Right. But my primal fear, perhaps it was a past life, was, oh my God, and it did come true. I can't lie to you people listening. My parents think that I'm a witch, but depends on how we're using that word. We're calling it, wise woman. Sure.
Right. Come back to Massachusetts. We have Salem. Come on.
Girl, I have people buried there. Yeah. I actually do have an ancestor that was killed during that. Although
wow.
It was actually because of an illicit affair that the nanny had, left the baby out in the cold. It wasn't even true witchcraft, but whatever. That's my claim to fame.
I love it.
Yeah, she was killed anyway because she looked at the baby weird and the baby died. But it turned out the baby died because the nanny left it out in the cold because she was getting jiggy.
She was probably a low-key witch, though.
Yeah, probably. Who knows? Who knows? But that was my big fear, which is funny because as I've also said on the podcast, long-term listeners will know that the same gifts that the Christian church celebrated, gifts of knowledge and prophecy, if we use just another word for it, semantics, all of a sudden, psychic, woo.
Yeah.
It's scary, but what I would encourage these entrepreneurs who are, seeking to bring more of a spiritual bent to their business, you don't have to start by coming out of the closet and flashing everyone going, I'm psychic.
So true. Yeah. Let that simmer first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still dance in both worlds. So in the counseling community, because it is still more buttoned up, I use, terminology like holistic health. Right. I'm not fooling people. It's not about deception. It's I will ask you about your spirituality.
Yeah, it's the different ways that we understand it. Like it all kind of comes down to the same shit. Mm-hmm. Whatever industry we're in, counseling, manifesting experts, it all kind of comes down to a lot of the same stuff. Right. And it points you back to yourself.
Yeah.
And understanding the journey and feeling your way through and doing it in your way.
And I mean, hell, 30 years ago, meditation was fucking satanic, according to most people in, in the Western world, but it's been done for bajillions of years everywhere else. So there's always going to be an edge to anything that goes beyond the five senses. And now meditation, you say meditation, everyone's like, everybody meditates.
Right. Like, you don't meditate. That's weird.
Like, what? You don't drink kombucha? What is wrong with you?
Smoothie this morning.
I don't know, but I did have bulletproof coffee. I'm drinking that Kool-Aid. So I think part of it is also remembering that, culture sometimes just takes a while to warm up to it, and you don't have to jump right. You don't have to do a cannonball into the spiritual side of things, but you can be infusing your daily personal walk with it and then bringing that to whatever it is that you're providing the world with.
Great point, because I think, I feel spiritual and I feel like that's growing, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this mix of like, yeah, I'm spiritual and I'm still discovering it. Mm-hmm. And yet I don't feel the need personally to feel like I have to come out of a spiritual closet, to feel like I have to focus my business on spirituality. And that for me is perfect, right?
Right. And thank God. Because can you imagine if every single billboard
person who had everybody who had a spiritual connection to themselves, like, taught. Yeah. And I think that I love what you had to say, because not everything we discover about ourselves has to be put out there.
No.
It can be for your benefit, utilized by you however you so choose.
Right. So what we're saying is let it inform you. Remember that you are a spiritual being. Find ways of making it a practical part of your day. And then consider, do I even want to crank up the notch and put it out there? If I am an entrepreneur, some of you will say yes, and some of you should say no. That this is enough, and it will inform you, and you will be attracting the right clients because of it. And then I would just want to add, as we start to close, that for the people who know that they're being called to include a spiritual component to their business, do not let that keep you hidden or scared, because I can tell you from a marketing standpoint, every single time, yeah, you will detract people, but you need to detract people in order to attract the right clients. Every single time you will make more money if it is the right niche for you. But that brings me back to what you were talking about, Alex. It has to be authentic.
Totally.
And you can tell when you're in the presence of somebody who is very grounded versus some flighty, somebody like that guy with the red hair is always making fun of.
JD.
JD, yeah. You can so tell the difference.
Totally. And first of all, I just want to say I love that you always at the end of our podcasts, you give like a 5 steps to understanding this podcast.
That's the counselor in me.
And I know I love it, because
and the professor. Yep.
Even my brain is like, wait, where did we start again? So it's grounding and helpful.
Well, thank you. Yeah. But even that is a good talking point, though, because I do wear multiple hats. I'm a college professor. I'm also a psychotherapist. I'm also a coach. And you're going to get a very different flavor of Tam's spirituality wherever we happen to meet.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's why it's also really important for people to recognize that there's no magic pill. There's no coach that is the be-all, end-all coach that will change your life, because you change your life. And they are bringing a bunch of different hats to your table. Mm-hmm. And you get to ultimately make powerful decisions for yourself with their support.
Yeah, one of the most mind-blowing moments in a session with a dear favorite client of mine yesterday was when she recognized that she's connected to the same answer as I am. We're all connected to the exact same source.
Yeah.
We just bring our tools and gifts into this great hall called life and offer them in service to one another in the beautiful, unique personhood that we are. You need a little more rocket fuel today? I got you. You need a little bit more yin energy today? Alex has you.
Yeah, totally. I know. You have got the rocket fuel. I need to start having some bulletproof coffee because, girl, I'm eating this up.
It's the jam. Any final thoughts for our listeners today, Alex?
I actually don't think so. I feel complete. What about you?
I just am swooning that you just said I feel complete. That's what I want everyone to walk away from presence with. I feel complete.
I feel complete.
I just want to give the world a hug right now and say, you are so beautiful in your divine essence. It's not egoic to remember that you are a spiritual being. And we fucking need you. So show up. Do the thing.
Yeah. Yes. I second that. And down.
And down like them, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Psychology Podcast. I pray you found some inspiration and empowerment to go out and make this life the most fulfilling possible. You can follow Sacred Psychology on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Tag us on social media and let us know what you think as well. Please note that the information provided is not meant to convey professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you could use such services, I highly recommend seeking them out from someone you trust. To get in touch with me personally or to see how we might work together, please check out ariatherapy.com or talesfromatrapezoid.com. Until next time, everyone.